Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
Looking around Washington, D.C. here in the United States, it's dedicated to remove all carbon emissions from the use of power, going to 100% renewable energy for the houses, the businesses, communities of faith, schools, everything is being converted over. And Ben Colbert, founder, CEO of City Renewables, is part of this movement to bring and building a clean future in Washington, D.C. So Ben, looking at this very densely built urban environment, what are we seeing here that's quite unique among all these very classical structures?
Sure. I really love this photo because it shows this is Capitol Hill, and Capitol Hill has been converting to solar power at a really rapid pace, but it's one of the oldest, most historic parts of the city. And this photo really captures how many rooftops and how dense the population is. And if you look close, you could see about 20 to 25 different solar panel systems in here. I count a different number every time I count them.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. But looking at, you have something that's very modern, very sleek, very high technology, yet it's being put among all these classical buildings. Some of these are over 100 years old. So how do we do this, and how do you blend it together so that this actually, the past is the future?
Sure. So we work in a lot of historical districts in DC. Some of these houses are over 100 years old, and it's really important to us to keep the historic look while also modernizing the homes. You know, it's way important, too important to in this mission to convert all homes to solar power. But again, we keep we like to keep the facade. So one thing that we do. Typically, you'd have a conduit that runs down the front of homes. But in these homes, we actually specifically design the conduit where it can travel through the interior of the home, keeping the front facade nice and clean.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, one of the things I wanted to point out here is the number of trees, and we're going to go back and comment on that in just a minute. But this is Jimmy Carter at the White House, one of the most famous, iconic homes in all of the world. And yet, this is really a monumental step forward as far as solar energy. And regardless of the ages, people know about this situation many decades ago. Why is this so important, Jimmy Carter and the solar panels on the White House?
Sure. Yeah. You know, I love this photo, and Jimmy Carter is one of my favorite presidents because he converted the White House to solar power. And I always post this picture on President's Day, and it's just really cool. It's also one of my #1 goals in DC to convert the White House back to solar power. Mm-hmm. So, you know, history, Ronald Reagan actually took the solar panels down after Jimmy Carter. So, you know, it's really important to me. I love this photo, and you know, my #1 goal is to convert the White House back to solar power.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Now, the built environment. This is really a very interesting photograph. Looks like a place where my friend lives on the Seine River in Paris, France. But tell us the importance of not just the love locks, but this uh, bridge that's being built among all communities across Washington, D.C., regardless of the divides over, say, 50, 70, 100 years ago. The city's coming back together.
Sure. This is one of my favorite photos. I wanted to include it. It doesn't have solar panels in it, but I wanted to include this because this is my neighborhood. I'm an Eckington guy, and I'm on the board of the Eckington Civic Association. And this is North Capitol that actually divides these two communities into Northeast and Northwest. And Northeast has traditionally been less developed than the Northwest because of these big roads that go through the middle. And I think solar power, it has the potential to really reconnect these areas and provide new jobs to areas that were traditionally undervalued and overlooked. And it's important for me to really help my community. And that's why I wanted to include this photo, because it's very special to me.
Yeah, and also too, I think we have this super highway that we can't even see, the super grid that's really rejoining these communities. And I think this is really a classical photograph of just how you do that. You have all these traditional buildings, yet you have this modern super graphic home right in the middle, and you're powering it with solar. Tell us about this and why it's so important, and then we're going to move forward to this young lady and how she's a leader, not just a pioneer, but a leader for solar in the city. What are we seeing here that's so new, different, exciting, yet it really is the mark of Washington, D.C., not only here, but across the United States?
Sure. So this project was managed by a good friend of mine who is also in the industry, and has an organization called Sustainable U, and there's another one called Revolution Solar, and we all came together for this picture. And this is the Watermelon House in DC, and it was a really cool installation, and it shows also just how unique DC landscape is. It's full of murals and just a lot of fun things going on in the city. And I think this Watermelon House it captures the moment. And it's just really was a nice installation for us.
Mhm. Now, tell us the very interesting story about this lady who really is a pioneer, but a leader for solar in Washington, D.C., and the community that she's in, because there's a special history about where she actually lives.
Yeah, this is Miss Turner, and she lives in the Anacostia area in Southeast DC, and she was the best to work with. Her shirt says, "I'm retired, you're not." Nah, 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 nah. She was just again so much fun to work with, and it's really exciting to see like these elderly and community leaders really stepping up to embrace clean energy. She's also right by the Anacostia River, which has traditionally been very polluted, and those areas are starting to be revitalized.
Mhm.
You can swim in these areas, and there's fish in it now, and solar power is so important to reduce pollution and to help these communities. And we work with everyone in the district, and we really enjoy working in Southeast with older folks in these areas.
Yeah, these areas really have been neglected over decades, and it's just really interesting because we've been working in Anacostia now about over a decade ourselves, and the transformation is just absolutely incredible. And you have these elders that really have pioneering spirits, and it's just amazing what they're doing. But looking at these solar installations and these roofscapes, how is this really a symbol of not only the future of Washington, D.C., but the very now of Washington, D.C., but also the entire United States?
Sure. So, solar panels are I think beautiful looking. They're super high tech and they're really helping the neighborhood. But I like this picture because it's of my neighborhood also. This is my house on the right, and my neighbors on the left. And I'm really involved in Eckington, and I'm really involved in my neighborhood. And I want my neighborhood to be clean, and I don't want a polluted neighborhood. I've started a trash pickup and a lot of different things in the neighborhood to just help our community come into the future and have a clean, bright future. And I think it's just very important to me personally to help my community and do everything possible that I can. I think clean energy is really gonna be a big part of that.
And I think also too, if you look at the greenscape that you have here, Ben, all these trees that are growing, many of them are have been planted in the last 20 or 30 years. Some of these are older legacy trees. But you know, when you look at a city that's going 100% renewable energy, and at the same time, it wants to have over 40% of the entire surface of the city covered with trees, that tells you the mindset that you have of the administration, the citizens that live here, is that they're looking at everything. So this is really a holistic approach as far as where we're going into the future. But looking at this scene right here, there's so much going on here in this very gentle, kind, settled, quiet photograph. What are we looking at here, Ben, that really is the future of Washington, D.C., but not just Washington, D.C., the entire United States?
Yeah, this picture was taken from one of my installations on off of 14th and T Street in the district, and I really like it because it just shows how green it is. It's very important for communities to have greenscapes with trees for shade purposes. It makes the areas more walkable, and they just represent, I think, life and the spring and just bringing life into communities. It's nice to have green trees, and it's just a nicer place to live in. I think
Mhm.
whenever you have areas like this.
I'm going to leave this photograph up because I just think it just there's so much in here. This is actually you could give a whole course out of this one photograph. But you look at the tall scape that you have here. The trees they're growing above the streets and bringing more shade, absorbing the carbon and all that. But when you look down at the street level, you see so much green at that level. So when you're walking this area, and this is the last question, Ben, when you're walking this area, you see this, and of course, you know this is going on all over Washington, D.C. Uh, what do you think the future is for the next 5, 10, and 15 years for Washington, D.C., but the United States, where we're taking communities across the nation and bringing them to look like this, maybe even more green?
Sure. I mean, DC is definitely going to be a beacon for the country and really the world in how we generate electricity. We're going 100% renewable energy, and we are working every day to do that. Although that's one component of it. It's also going to be changed. There's also different aspects going to be changed. We're working on different techniques for water drainage
Mhm.
and different pollutions and planting trees, making the city more walkable. We are installing more bike lanes to reduce greenhouse emissions from transportation. We're going to have more electric vehicle charging stations, and we're really going to see the landscape change to a more modern landscape very quickly, and we're already starting to see it. And it's a really exciting future, and I'm super excited to be a part of it.
Fantastic. Ben Colbert, founder, CEO, City Renewables, thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.